Hey Shooby-Doodlers, how are you doing? Well, I get lots of people kind of contact me saying, I really want to write children's books, or I've got this great idea, or whatever, I'd really like to illustrate children's books, and they all ask me all sorts of questions. So I thought maybe I'd make actually a couple of videos. So this one will be talking about writing and sort of illustrating, kind of the early stages of illustrating, and then to the next video I'm going to talk about the actual kind of publishing process, and which will involve more the illustrator, so the writer kind of gets the first bit done, as it were. So I get all sorts of people say to me, oh, I'd love to write a children's book, or I've got this great idea, and quite often people say, I've got this great idea, you write it and I'll take all the profit. It doesn't really work that way. An idea is worthless until you actually do something with it. And it's the person who does something with the idea that actually deserves the profit from it, not that kind of, the idea, because it's just not enough on its own, an idea. You have to kind of run with it to make it worthwhile. So I think there are various kinds of people that come to me asking about, what do I do? So I think the most people that come along, I think, have children of their own, and they've kind of told them a story, and it's kind of maybe grown a bit at bedtime, and the kids love it. The kids love it because they love you. It doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be a commercial success. And children are very polite on the whole, and they want to please you. So don't, just because somebody says, oh, the children love it, it doesn't actually mean that it's going to be a great picture book. But I think it kind of breaks into two different things. Some really great picture books have come out of kind of family stories and bedtime stories, but not many. And there is no reason why you shouldn't want to have your story published and actually hold a copy in your hands, because I know what that feeling is like. It's really great to kind of say, this is my book, I made this. That's a really great thing. To take that on into having that copy in hundreds and hundreds of bookshops around the world, selling hundreds of thousands of copies, that is a totally different thing. And quite often people will send me a story, and I'll read it, and I think this is a family story, and it doesn't kind of chime with the rest of the world. But sometimes if you change a bit here and change a bit there, but then the person who wrote it doesn't want to do that because it's their story. So I think it's probably the difference between wanting to write your own book, which will become kind of a family heirloom that you can pass on, and you'll only print 10 copies, 10, 20, maybe 100. You can give them for Christmas presents. But if you want to be a professional, then you have to be professional about it, and you're thinking about a much wider, broader market. So you might kind of think niche, and think, this is going to be particularly good children's book for girls or for boys. So immediately you're into a girl or boy niche. Or you might think this is particularly good for children of a certain age, or for children who are learning to tie their shoelaces, children who are potty training, whatever, that kind of thing. So you can narrow it down into a niche. And I think the really big sellers are really kind of aim at those big themes, particularly of childhood, and it's kind of fear of the monster under the bed, and fear of being abandoned, all those kinds of things. It's all fear, isn't it? So you're kind of appealing to those fears, and you're writing books which are going to allay those fears, and stories which are going to say, it's okay, don't worry. So, kind of reassuring stories for children. And quite often they do have a kind of a scary bit in the middle, and it all gets sort of sorted out by tea time or bedtime at the end of the story, and that's what we want, is everything to end up happily ever after. So so if you've kind of written something and or you've kind of developed something at home, and you've got this kind of story, then you have to decide what you're going to do with it. And as I say, some people, that it's precious, it's very, very precious, and that's their thing. And then you are really going to have to go down the self-publishing route, because publishers will read your story, and they read many, many, many stories like that every single day, and it just hasn't got that broad or even international appeal that is going to make it worthwhile a publisher investing in. And they do invest a lot of money into a picture book, so it has to be able to make a financial return for them. So but the good thing now is that it is so easy to, well, relatively easy to publish your own books. But there's a whole process, but there are lots of people who will help you along your way. There are lots of people who will help you along your way and take a lot of money off you as well. So do be wary of that. But if you are kind of still thinking, oh, I would really like to have my book in shops, and I want to be the next J.K. Rowling, except she doesn't really do picture books, but I want to have the next I want to be the next Julia Donaldson and have the next Gruffalo or something like that, then you really have to start putting yourself into a different kind of brain. Now, the story that you have got might be really, really good. It might be a really good kind of essence, a little kernel of the story. The chances of you writing the perfect story straight off are quite slim. So you're going to need to edit and rewrite. The first thing I say to lots of people who really want to write children's books is go and join Scooby, SCBWI. I'll put the links down below. So it's an American organisation originally, but they've spread out across the world. They have a very big chapter here in the UK, and I know they're in Australia, New Zealand and places. And they're very... The Scooby that I know here in the UK anyway is a very, very friendly bunch of people, and they kind of get together for all sorts of things, and they kind of help encourage and teach each other. And there's many people who I kind of met early days while I've been lecturing or something at Scooby events, who've been sat at the back making little notes, who are now published authors that I meet at parties and things like that, at publishers. So Scooby are very successful in encouraging you, and they are very warm and friendly and helpful in that way. So that's one thing I would suggest you to do, and you have to be professional. If you want it to be a professional job, you've got to be professional about it. There is an old saying in writing which says, "Kill your darlings." And when you've written a text, there might be something that you just really, really love, and just one sentence or a kind of a floating little bit of lyrical text or something. You think, oh, that's beautiful. I'm so proud of having written that. That is probably the thing that has to go first, unfortunately, because you become obsessed with that, saving that, and you keep changing. That becomes a solid thing in the middle, and you change everything around it, whereas it just doesn't work, and you need to get rid of that so that then everything else will then flow and you can change around it. If you really start holding out for little phrases or tiny ideas, then you really want to ask yourself, is this necessary? Just try taking it out and see what happens. And it's difficult because they are your darlings, they're your little babies, and you don't want to let them go. But you might be able to use it in another story. It might kind of inform another story later on. It's too simple to say that there is a formula for picture books, but there are formulae, I think, for picture books, and there's a kind of a flow to how a picture book goes, and you kind of want lyrical kind of flow. Some things work in rhyme, but many don't. You have to be so really good to get a picture book working in rhyme. And people send me something sometimes, and it's like, oh, you're having to force the story around these rhymes, and it just doesn't work. And it would be a much better story if you got rid of the rhyming and just told the story. But some people feel a picture book has to be a rhyme, and it doesn't. It doesn't have to be a rhyme at all. Certainly not di-da, 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 di-da. If you get more of an interesting kind of rhyme, then that's sort of better, a more flowing kind of rhyme. And words that rhyme that actually mean something in the story. So don't be obsessed with trying to get a story to rhyme. And a picture book is really only about 500 words. Some people write great long things, and they're kind of stories with pictures, but a picture book is about 500 words long, and it is a picture book. Okay. The pictures are really important. It's not a story with little pretty pictures attached. The pictures are really important, and the illustrator needs to be a picture book illustrator who understands that. And so a really great picture book writer will leave stuff out because they know the illustrator is going to put that in, and they know that a really good illustrator will read that text and think, wow, fantastic, I can do this, I can do that. So don't cram your story with description. It's a more flowing kind of thing. Don't worry about describing too much in a picture book. It's in the pictures. And also in the pictures, a really good illustrator will kind of do counterpoint story to yours. And they will be telling another story in the pictures. There might be little animals will start doing things. So you might think of that ahead, and you might think, I could have this other character in there, or these two characters. And so you can kind of write it like a script for the illustrator. So you've got the story, but you can put little suggestions in. Hey, we could do this, we could do that. But don't be surprised if an illustrator wants to do something entirely different. So publishers will generally keep the author and the illustrator apart, and I think most of the books I've illustrated for other authors, I never met the authors before, and that's generally how publishers like it. Once an author and an illustrator get together, they start getting too artistic, and they go, oh, we could do this, we could do that, and it all starts turning into an art project. Whereas the publishers want a commercial story, a commercial success. That's what they're after. So what about self-publishing? That's one of the reasons I'm making this video, because at the end of this month, on the 29th, let me put my advert in there, my book Pandora is going to be published to the trade through Amazon. You should, well, you can get it right across the trade around the world and through bookshops and things like that. So on the 29th of November, you can do that. I want you to go to Amazon. There are links down below, and in fact you could click up here and I'll put a link there. Go to Amazon and pre-order this on Amazon now, because that really helps me to to sell copies on Amazon. Amazon like to have things sort of booked up, and this book here, how do we go about it? Sometimes you can just write a story. Pandora has come about. It's taken me 20 years. I have written a book in 7 minutes. Pandora has taken me about 20 years. And it started off in schools, and all the kids, they loved Goosebumps, those kind of scary books. And I go, oh, they're rubbish. It's just about this girl who goes down this country lane in the middle of the night. She's been told not to, and awful things happen to her. And then each school that I went to, this pattern got repeated. People asked me, do I write Goosebumps? And my story got more and more involved, and until in the end it got kind of fixed, and it worked really well telling it to the children. And then one day I thought, I better write this down. So I did, but it wasn't a book. It didn't feel right. And and so almost every year I kind of got it out and had a rewrite and a rewrite and a rethink. And eventually I realised that it was the story of Pandora. And so I thought, I'm going to kind of rewrite this as a Pandora story. And then it just wasn't quite right. It wasn't. So I kept rewriting it and rewriting it every year. And then finally I thought, yes, this is great. And then also, then the world had changed. There were all these kind of new feminist issues. It's a story about a girl, and you know, Pandora is quite tricky in the sort of feminist issue kind of world. So I had to think about that. And there were lots of other kind of issues, you know, because society changes, and things that I'd taken for granted when I first wrote it. Society has changed and attitudes have changed, so I had to kind of rethink it. And then finally I was happy with it, and I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to self-publish, because it's been 20 years, and if you're going to be published by a major publisher, it could be 2 years before you even get a contract. There's so much involved, there's so much being invested, and they're going to have to get other international editions involved to make the whole thing sort of financially worthwhile. Well, certainly here in the UK, it might be different in the US, I think, because you've got a bigger market there. Maybe you can just sort of do it more easily there. But here in the UK, you really need to have these international co-editions all organised and signed up, and it takes a while to get all that sorted. And so it can take 2 years before you even get a contract, and then it could take another 2 years before it even gets published. And I couldn't be bothered, so I thought, I'm going to publish this myself and just see what happens. And I thought I would start off on, and then I thought, I'm going to do a special edition on Kickstarter. So that's what I did. There was a special edition. And it had sort of warning bands around it. It was all sealed inside an envelope saying "do not open," and so that was quite successful, and that gave me all the impetus to actually do the work. So I'm the illustrator as well. So it actually made me do all the illustrations, get the book finished, and get it printed. Once it's printed, the files are all there, and then I could get it all set up to publish. It was actually 3 months ahead, which gives bookshops and people a chance to kind of be aware of it and maybe think they would like to stock it. We hope. So that on the 29th of November 2018, it will be published, and then it's kind of off out on its own. And I suppose this that I'm doing now is part of the marketing process of it, by telling you about it. And so it's not easy doing it yourself. It really isn't. I'm really lucky. I'm very, very experienced. When I left school, I went into printing, so I kind of understand the whole printing world. And I've done design. I've been writing children's books for 30 years. I've been illustrating children's books for 30 years. I have a lot of experience. And I've been playing with computers since sort of 1980 something, and 1981 I think, and so I got a lot of experience with computers. I've grown up with them, and all the software programs and design and things like that. So I have an enormous amount of experience. I'm a bit geeky, so I've kind of learned through bitter experience about how to upload videos to Lightning Source, Ingram Lightning Source, who I use to publish with online, and that's been a hard process, learning by quite a few mistakes, and now I think I'm sort of pretty proficient at doing that. So there is a lot to do. You need to write the story, you need to edit the story, you really, really, really need to edit the story. You need other people to read it and tell you what they think of it, or you need to go out and read it to people, perform it and see how it works. And then you need an illustrator, and that's really tricky. See, publishers kind of know what's going to work. You as an author, self-publishing author, you're going to have to, maybe you're the illustrator yourself, which would be great, but you will have to go out and find yourself an illustrator, do all the contractual stuff with them, maybe have to pay them, and then if you don't know how to handle InDesign or PageMaker or something, PageMaker Quark or something like that, one of the PageMaker programs, then you're going to have to get somebody to design it for you, so that's added expense and things like that. So it's not easy. For me, it's time. For me, it's all about time, because I've got all the experience and I know what to do. Otherwise, you know, you're going to have to find other people to help you doing these things. And that's the easy part. Once it's actually published and you hold a book in your hand, then it gets really difficult. Marketing is a whole other world, and I don't begin to understand it. And some people can just kind of sell things. and I'm kind of slowly learning how to promote and how to sell and make people aware of things. But I've got my mind on the next book already, and I really should be kind of selling this book. And so I suppose I should be employing marketing people and things as well. I'm holding it to myself too much. That's kind of an overview of wanting to write your own picture book. And in the next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you kind of the process, the kind of processes that you're going to go through with a publisher. This will probably be more really for the illustrator, I suppose, because once you've written your book, it's kind of done. You know, you can have a lot of time editing with the publisher, and things will come backwards and forwards. But technically and everything, then it's really over the designers and illustrators and marketing department and everything after that. So click up here for the next video. And if you have questions, and if you think I'm not making any sense at all, or if you need to know more or particular things, then put them in the comments box down below, and I'll see what I can do. And you might just kind of suggest another video that I can make, which will kind of expand on this one. So thank you very much for watching, and in the meantime, keep writing, illustrating, making picture books, and I'll see you next time. You take care now. Bye bye.